Chapter 1. Willow Hawthorne had decided on a divorce. Today would be the last wedding anniversary she and Damen Thornton would spend together. Once the divorce agreement was signed, if all went smoothly, in a month, she could completely escape this oppressive 3-year marriage. At 10 p.m., she meticulously drew her eyebrows in front of the mirror, dressed in a limited edition designer gown, and fastened a matching diamond necklace. Her exquisite makeup barely concealed her fatigue. At 11 p.m., Willow Hawthorne took out her wedding ring, slipped it onto her ring finger, then picked up the divorce agreement lying nearby and tucked it into her purse. At 12 a.m., the sound of a key turning in the lock came from the front door. Willow Hawthorne, Damen Thornton walked in, not noticing her careful grooming in the slightest, his brow furrowed in slight displeasure. "Didn't you hear me come back?" Usually, as soon as he stepped out of the elevator, Willow would quickly open the door for him. A faint, fruity perfume wafted from him, sweet, with a youthful, sunny aura. Evidently, he had been with his white moonlight again, and the two had clearly been intimate recently. Willow lowered her gaze, concealing her disappointment and bitterness. When she looked up again, her face wore its customary gentle smile. "Sorry, I didn't notice." She rose and walked towards Damen Thornton as she spoke. The designer gown was adorned with a cascade of gemstones that sparkled with her every move. Damen finally noticed something different about her. She was meticulously dressed up, but when he spoke, it was still with a dissatisfied, accusatory tone. "You're going out at this hour?" He had, of course, forgotten what day it was, but it didn't matter. After midnight, it was no longer their anniversary. Willow had long since learned not to harbor any illusions about Damen Thornton. Ever since their wedding night, when he had fallen asleep drunkenly murmuring another person's name, she knew they would only ever be a contractual couple, and could only be a contractual couple. 3 years ago, Willow Hawthorne had suffered kidney failure and urgently needed a transplant. Her adoptive parents couldn't afford it, nor could they find a donor, so they desperately pleaded for help everywhere. Unable to bear their suffering, she had planned to go to a rooftop and jump. It was then that Elena Thornton found her, saying she could cure her, but Willow had to agree to one condition. She had to marry Damen Thornton for 3 years. Elena promised that Damen would let her go after 3 years and would provide her with as much convenience as possible. The reason was simple. She bore a striking resemblance to Damen Thornton's first love, and both were music majors. And that first love, forced into a marriage with a wealthy foreign family, had left him completely. Damen Thornton had fallen into a deep despair, avoiding the office, skipping meetings, missing family dinners. Rumors flew that he was wasting away over a woman. For the gift of life, this request was nothing. Willow Hawthorne naturally agreed. Fresh out of surgery, she moved into this penthouse as a stand-in for Damen Thornton's first love. At first, Damen Thornton was extremely averse and rejecting. If Willow ever tried to be kind to him, he would fly into a rage, smash everything in the house to pieces, and then storm out. Willow would always sit calmly amidst the wreckage, carefully applying medicine to the cuts on her face from flying porcelain shards, and mock herself in the mirror. Well, isn't this, in a way, helping him pull himself together? Not long after the wedding, her adoptive father suddenly fell gravely ill and passed away quickly. Willow was immersed in grief for a time and had no energy to dwell on Damen Thornton's petty moods. Their relationship eased somewhat during the summer of their first year of marriage. Damen Thornton was sabotaged by a business rival. His car's brakes were maliciously tampered with. On a downhill slope, the car was like a runaway ball. The driver had also been bought off. After locking the other car doors, he jumped out, leaving Damen and Willow in the backseat to die. The moment the car crashed into the railings, Willow unbuckled her seatbelt and held Damen tightly, acting as a human airbag. When she regained consciousness in the ICU, her vision blurry, she saw the man who had always been so cold, now unshaven, his eyes swollen, repeatedly whispering "I'm sorry" in her ear before being ushered out by alarmed medical staff. After that, Damen Thornton slowly started coming home more often, until he would only eat Willow's cooking, only found her choice of clothes appealing, and only allowed her into his personal space. He even gave her a gift on her birthday just that once. It was the gown she was wearing now. She thought she had finally melted his cold heart until their first wedding anniversary. She had dressed up meticulously and waited bitterly until midnight. The midwinter wind was truly cold. She shivered despite being wrapped in a thick coat. But she only discovered from his friend Marcus Davies' social media feed that he had flown to the other side of the world to see the aurora. Leaning against him was the back of an unfamiliar woman with long hair. Marcus Davies had captioned it, "Lovers finally get their happy ending." On this side of the world, Willow looked at her marriage certificate with Damen Thornton. Lovers. Didn't a marriage certificate make them family anymore? On the certificate, she looked dazed and nervous, while the man's head was turned to the side, his expression only impatient and disgusted. Looking at it that way, it seemed they really weren't. Willow Hawthorne carefully put away the marriage certificate, along with her budding affections, buried in the winter night. Chapter 2, Willow Hawthorne, I'm talking to you. Didn't you hear me? Damen Thornton's impatient voice pulled Willow back from her drifting thoughts. Perhaps it was because she was leaving soon, but she found herself actually spacing out while looking at Damen. After all, for the past 3 years, her eyes had only been on him, ready to respond to his every need. Today is our 3rd wedding anniversary. I was planning to go out and celebrate with you, but you worked overtime and just got back. You should probably just wash up and rest, Willow said deliberately, a gentle smile playing on her lips. Damen Thornton's expression stiffened slightly, his Adam's apple bobbed. A subtle, satisfying sense of revenge flickered in her as the corner of her mouth curved up. She knew, of course, that his claim of working overtime was a lie. Rumor had it that the Sterling family's daughter, Serena, had experienced a marital breakdown abroad and had quietly returned to the country. Today was the day Serena Sterling returned. As soon as this news broke, Willow knew Damen wouldn't be able to sit still. Sure enough, she immediately received a message from him saying he had to work late. At that very moment, his secretary had also just replied to her, saying that her boss had already driven away from the company. Seeing him return so dejected and clearly in a bad mood, he had probably failed in his pursuit of love. Damen reined in his temper slightly, without a hint of apology. It's not too late to have the restaurant deliver now. It's cold outside, not good for going out. It sounded like he was being considerate of Willow, but she knew he was just too lazy to spend time and effort on her. Willow wasn't annoyed, nor did she remind him that the time had already passed. She agreed readily, all right. After Willow had ordered from the restaurant and changed into her home clothes, she looked up to see Damen putting on his overcoat. She froze for a moment, reminding him, I just ordered. It hasn't arrived yet. Damien's hand, adjusting his tie, paused for a second before he said, There's an emergency at the company. You eat by yourself. I'll make it up to you next time. Then he hastily grabbed his car keys and left. His steps were quick, urgent, and he looked very happy. Willow glanced at the car keys. He had taken the Bugatti. The last time he drove that car was when Serena Sterling had made a sudden return trip, and he had rushed to the airport to meet her. Willow had only later seen in the news that the foreign tycoon's collection consisted mostly of Bugattis, and that's how she knew Serena liked that car. There's an agreement to sign before you go. It was the first time she had called out to him as he was about to leave. Damen had just finished changing his shoes. A flicker of annoyance crossed his brow, then quickly vanished. You sign it for me. Bang, the door slammed shut. Willow stared at the closed door, wondering whether or not to thank Serena Sterling. Usually, the man wouldn't even bother to reply to her. Perhaps he was in a good mood just now, which was why he'd had the inclination to answer when she called out to stop him. She took out the slightly creased divorce agreement, pulled out Damien's dedicated signing pen, and imitated his handwriting to sign his name. It was a perfect imitation, identical to Damen Thornton's own signature. After getting married, she had been incredibly bored at home alone. She had tried practicing the piano, but after being told it was noisy, she never touched it again. With nothing else to do, she started imitating Damen Thornton's handwriting. At first, it was just for fun, but later, it became almost indistinguishable from the real thing. Damen then conveniently had her help sign some less important documents, most of which he had personally reviewed, so it wasn't a big issue. Today was the first time he had let her make the decision herself, and just by chance, it was the divorce agreement. It was signed smoothly, one could say. After signing, Willow called Eleanor Thornton. Upon learning it was signed, the person on the other end sounded slightly surprised. He agreed, "Yes, and please, Mrs. Thornton, don't reveal my plans for afterward." Eleanor Thornton was silent for a long time before sighing. "All right, I'll prepare what you need. There's still a month. Say a proper goodbye to Damen. You're not entirely out of his heart." Willow's smile was weak. "I know." No one knew better than her who resided in Damen Thornton's heart. Damen Thornton did not return that night. Willow curled up on the sofa, staring blankly at the night view, until drowsiness enveloped her, offering a brief escape. Chapter 3. The next morning, Willow rose early, washed up, and dressed, planning to go to City Hall to register the divorce first. Just as she opened the door, Damen Thornton burst in, reeking of alcohol. The smell of alcohol was mixed with a strong, fruity fragrance, and a red mark on his neck was quite conspicuous. It wasn't that his wife was overly sensitive, it was just that her husband was too careless to conceal it. Damen, oblivious, mumbled, "Going out again?" Willow hummed a low yes and brushed past him. The man sensed something was off and grabbed her hand. "Where are you going?" Her heart jolted. He usually paid no attention to her. Why was he suddenly so inquisitive? Then she heard the man continue, "Make some hangover soup before you go." Willow's breath hitched for a second. 3 years of suppressed humiliation surged up within her. Slowly, firmly, she pulled her hand away. "Make it yourself." Damen retorted without thinking. "How am I supposed to make it myself?" She had truly spoiled him too much. Willow sneered. "Then why don't you call Miss Sterling to make it?" The man, who had still been somewhat drunk, sobered up instantly, staring intently at Willow. "What do you mean by that?" She had already walked out the door, tossing back. "Exactly what it sounds like." Damen stared blankly as Willow left, his hand feeling empty, and a strange, uncomfortable feeling settled in his heart. How did she know about Serena Sterling? No, he had never tried to hide it, so it wasn't surprising that she knew. What was that attitude of hers just now? Was that still the same Willow Hawthorne? Was she angry that he didn't come home on their anniversary night? But the ringing of his phone soon interrupted his thoughts. Meanwhile, Willow came out of City Hall after completing the registration and paid the stand and a fee. It couldn't be helped. Divorce procedures were complicated and required both parties to be present. She had no choice but to hire someone who looked reasonably similar at a high price. She looked at the estimated date for receiving the certificate on the registration form. Her marital sentence had 1 month left. Just as she put it away, Damen Thornton's call came through. "Pick out some new furniture and bring it back." Why pick out furniture all of a sudden? Willow, out of habit, didn't ask further questions and planned to buy according to Damien's preferences. However, she then received a message from Damen with very detailed descriptions of each piece of furniture. It was clearly someone's specific request. A suspicion formed in her mind, but she didn't want to dwell on it. She spent the whole morning shopping and finally bought everything. As she returned home with the delivery man, the door opened to sounds of laughter and cheerful conversation. Damen was intimately conversing with a young woman. The woman wore a pristine white long dress, her hair cascaded down to her waist, and her smile was bright and pure. This must be Serena Sterling. Willow hadn't expected to meet her husband's first love for the first time in her and her husband's little home. The delivery man, trying to be congenial, said while unloading the goods, "Congratulations to you both on your new marriage." His eyes, of course, were on Damen and Serena. Damen looked embarrassed, a subtle hint of pleasure mixed with his awkwardness. Serena, however, quickly pulled away, clarifying, "We're just friends." Then she called out to Willow at the door, "You must be Chief Thornton's wife, right?" The delivery man, realizing his mistake, seemed to lose his ability to speak, remaining silent and finishing 30 minutes of work in 10. Willow returned the greeting calmly. "Miss Sterling, I've heard so much about you." Indeed, she had heard so much. Because of their hurried conversation that morning, Damen felt a little unnatural facing Willow, but he still introduced them. "This is Serena Sterling. This is my, wife, Willow Hawthorne." Wife. Even those 2 words seemed to scald his tongue, as if he were afraid Serena would accuse him of infidelity. "Is everything moved in? If you ask me, you should hurry up and divorce that cuckoo who's occupying the nest. Don't take up our Renee's place." A noisy complaint approached from a distance, stopping at the living room entrance. Chapter 4. Marcus Davies hadn't expected Willow Hawthorne to be there at all. His words died in his throat. The three of them stared at each other, a strange silence descending, yet a sense of a united front forming amongst them. Willow was an outsider, unable to join in. Serena Sterling was the first to react, taking Willow's hand to explain. "Willow, don't overthink it. Mark just likes to talk nonsense. He's got a loose cannon for a mouth. He's gotten himself into trouble countless times because of it." They weren't exactly familiar, and this sudden hand-holding made Willow, who had mild mysophobia, quite uncomfortable. She politely withdrew her hand and smiled at Serena. "It's not the first or second day Marcus Davies has been a dimwit. I won't get angry with a half-wit." Hearing her curse him directly, Marcus's eyes widened in anger. "Who are you calling a dimwit?" This was outrageous in the past. No matter how much he mocked her, she could only take it. Did she grow a backbone today? Willow didn't even blink, staring at Marcus Davies with a playful gaze. Indeed a dimwit. Can't even understand something so obvious. Originally, Damen Thornton felt a little guilty towards Willow. But seeing her push away Serena's hand and hearing her attitude, that guilt vanished completely. He stated matter-of-factly, "Serena will be staying at our place for a while. Her parents on both sides are very angry about her return this time, and she has nowhere else to go." Even if they were angry, couldn't Serena Sterling afford a place to stay? Willow let out a sarcastic laugh, too lazy to pursue his excuse, which was riddled with loopholes. That laugh was very grating. The three people opposite her saw it clearly. Serena quickly tried to smooth things over. "I'm not planning to stay here, it's just Chief Thornton being too worried about me. Willow, please don't take it to heart." It was unclear whether she was trying to smooth things over or provoke her. But to Willow, it no longer mattered. She curved her lips into her signature compliant smile. "It's all right, Miss Sterling, please stay here. There are plenty of rooms anyway. Since Miss Sterling is an honored guest, I'll give up the master bedroom." There were 2 master bedrooms in the house. She and Damen had never shared a bed. Under Damen Thornton's astonished gaze, Willow had already naturally taken out her phone to call for movers to come and change the furniture. Willow was inside, directing the movers to carry out her furniture. The three of them sat in the living room, watching her things being moved from the master bedroom to the living room, piece by piece. Marcus Davies couldn't help but whisper to Damen Thornton, "Chief Thornton, has she lost her mind? Didn't she get into a big fight with someone for you before? How come she's not jealous now?" Damien's face was also grim as he stared at Willow's calm and unhurried back. He knew better than anyone that something was wrong with her. She was still angry about Serena. All right, it was indeed a bit strange for him to leave her alone on their anniversary. Thinking about how she was all dressed up last night, it was clear how much she had been looking forward to their evening date. Had he perhaps gone a bit too far? "Chief Thornton, maybe I should just go to a hotel. His people probably wouldn't dare to cause trouble there." Serena leaned in and whispered in his ear. Damen saw the bruises on her wrist, and any insignificant regret he felt for Willow vanished. He grasped Serena's hand, his brow furrowed as he promised, "Just stay here. Don't worry, I won't let him touch you." But Serena recoiled as if scalded, abruptly pulling her hand back. "Miss Sterling, the bedroom has been cleared out. You can go tell the movers to arrange the furniture according to your requirements now." Willow had come into the living room at some point, a smile on her lips, but her eyes were cold. She had seen and heard Damien's words and Serena's withdrawal of her hand. No matter what, she was still Damen Thornton's wife in name. These two were being a little too hasty. Chapter 5, by the time Serena Sterling's bedroom was organized, it was already getting late. Marcus Davies accompanied Serena to retrieve the rest of her luggage, while Willow was still in the living room, tidying up her own things. Moving once was good. It allowed her to discard what needed to be thrown away first. Seeing Willow dawdle in putting away her furniture and ornaments, Damen Thornton couldn't help but ask, "Haven't you finished tidying up yet?" Willow looked up at him. "Is it bothering you?" When she moved things to the living room earlier, she had deliberately avoided Damien's activity area so it wouldn't affect him in any way. Damen was speechless, casually making an excuse, "It's too late, it will disturb others." A spacious penthouse with no next-door neighbors. The lower floor was a void, and a thick soundproofing layer had been added. It was unclear who others she might disturb, probably ghosts. Willow knew he was just finding fault, possibly dissatisfied with her attitude towards Serena. But giving up the master bedroom was the most magnanimous thing she could do. Therefore, she merely lowered her eyelids and replied indifferently, "If it's noisy, just bear with it." She had endured him for 3 years. "Yes, throw all these away, just keep one coat." Willow waved her hand dismissively, clearing out the entire wardrobe, leaving only a set of winter clothes enough to get through this month. The movers were overjoyed. Her wardrobe was full of good clothes, and the wardrobe itself was made of solid wood. They happily took everything away. In the end, only a bed frame, a Simmons mattress, a set of winter clothes, and an unopened cabinet remained. Thinking about the contents of the cabinet, she had the movers move it into the room first, planning to sort through and discard things slowly later. Damen Thornton watched everything. When the movers carried the bed and cabinet back into the room, he inexplicably breathed a sigh of relief. Seeing Willow's haphazard way of throwing things out, he had thought she was about to leave for good. As night fell, Willow finally had some free time. She glanced up and saw the night view outside the window. Perhaps it was because she had thrown away so many things, which had also taken away a part of her heavy emotions. For the first time in a long while, she felt a spark of interest. She walked to the piano by the window and gently played a cheerful tune. She hummed unconsciously, her hands moving faster and faster, and a genuine smile gradually appeared on her face. "You can sing," a question came from the shadows. Thump. Willow, startled, pressed heavily on the bass notes. She looked towards the source of the voice and saw Damen Thornton's silhouette, half in shadow. She had completely forgotten he was still home after all. At this time, he was usually either at the company or at a social engagement. Willow stood up and closed the piano lid, her earlier lightheartedness gone. She began with an apology. "I'm sorry, I won't play the piano at home anymore." Once she left the Thornton house, she would play to her heart's content. Damen Thornton disliked the change in her attitude and pressed on. "When did you learn to sing?" he asked very seriously. Willow froze for a moment, then gave a wry smile. "I've always been a music major." After her marriage, a top music conservatory abroad had sent her an invitation. Only then did she realize her professor had recommended her. She had hopefully asked Damen if she could go. Damen had only said the house wouldn't feel right without her. That one sentence had firmly trapped her in the Thornton household. Naturally, she had missed that great opportunity. She wondered if now that she was divorced, she could fight for another chance for herself. Fortunately, Damen Thornton didn't press further. He stood up and picked up his overcoat. "Let's go. Serena is treating us to dinner." There was no room for discussion. Willow had something she wanted to say, but she swallowed the words back down. This was the first time she had sat in the passenger seat of Damen Thornton's car. This time it wasn't the Bugatti, just their everyday Mercedes. After fastening her seatbelt, she thought for a moment and then made a call. "Hello, Mom. I can't make it back today. I'll come over for dinner next time." Chapter 6. Damen Thornton's heart stirred slightly. He glanced sideways at her, suddenly remembering that today was her scheduled day to visit her family. They had previously agreed that the day after their wedding anniversary, she would go to her mother's place for dinner. However, he had always used various excuses to refuse, and she had always gone alone. Over time, he had completely forgotten even this date. Willow, however, seemed long accustomed to it, calmly answering the questions from the other end of the line. "He's not coming back, he's busy." "Yes, it's fine. I'll have plenty of time to have dinner with you in the future. We can even go on a trip together." What did she mean? What did she mean by plenty of time? Did she have plans for a trip? Damien's throat tightened, a question almost slipped out. He waited for Willow to explain. But after Willow hung up, she said nothing and simply closed her eyes. The green light turned red. Damen could no longer hold back. "When did I agree to go on a trip with you? I have to accompany Serena for the foreseeable future." Willow was trying to rest when she was suddenly hit with this. She stared blankly. "When did I ask you to go on a trip with me?" His brow furrowed. "Then who are you going on a trip with?" Hearing his relentless questioning, Willow opened her eyes in annoyance, her tone sharp. "Well, it's not an affair, that's for sure." She just wanted to close her eyes and rest quietly. Couldn't he just shut up? He'd forgotten the day she was supposed to go home for dinner, yet he was so concerned about what she'd just said. "You!" The red light turned green. Willow closed her eyes again and said calmly, "Just drive quietly." You didn't say a word when we were sitting in the car, so why are you so talkative now that you're driving?" It wasn't as if they hadn't gone out together before, sitting quite intimately in the back seat. But Damen had either kept his eyes closed or stared out his window the entire time. Having someone sit next to him was no different from having a large stone there. Damen was so shocked he even forgot to retort. Was he hearing things? Were those words really coming from Willow Hawthorne's mouth? He even drove past the restaurant, causing them to be 10 minutes late. Willow watched Damen Thornton's hurried back and felt a growing sense of deep emotion. She had been married to this man for 3 years, and he had always been composed and in control. When they first met, she couldn't possibly associate this person with the decadent man Eleanor Thornton had described. It turned out he did have a flustered side, a side he only showed for Serena Sterling. Serena Sterling and Marcus Davies seemed to have been waiting for a long time. As soon as their eyes met, Marcus scanned Willow from top to bottom, then snorted coldly. "It's just dinner, not a beauty pageant." What took so long? He naturally assumed Willow had been dawdling and wasting time. And Damen, even though he heard this misunderstanding, didn't speak up to defend her. She wasn't important. She had understood that long ago. Marcus muttered again, "Told you not to invite her." What a pain in the neck. Willow, being a musician, had excellent hearing. She knew Marcus Davies disliked her. When they had suddenly announced their marriage, Marcus, in front of all the guests, had said that Damen Thornton had only one fiancé. That person, of course, was not Willow Hawthorne. Although Eleanor Thornton had flusteredly pulled Marcus away, Damen had never denied it from beginning to end. Naturally, Damen Thornton's circle of friends did not welcome Willow Hawthorne. Others also gossiped and speculated about what methods she had used to climb into Damen Thornton's bed. After the marriage, Marcus's bullying had never ceased. Humiliating her seemed to have become his pleasure and daily routine. And Willow, for the sake of her reputation as young Mrs. Thornton, had endured it all. At this moment, she slowly took off her coat, looked at Marcus Davies, and curved her lips. "If you find it such a pain, you can leave." The same as always, her signature, Mrs. Thornton's smile. Today, however, it was particularly laced with mockery. Marcus couldn't stand this provocation. He gritted his teeth and retorted, "You're the one who should leave, always being a third wheel. You don't really think you're young Mrs. Thornton, do you?" Chapter 7, Serena Sterling immediately intervened with an apology. Damen Thornton remained silent. The three of them, in a coordinated act, were performing a terrible play. Willow ignored them, engrossed in ordering her food. After she finished, Damen took the menu, quickly ticked off a few items, and handed it directly to the waiter. Then he said to Serena, "I ordered a few of your usual favorites. We can add more later." And then the three of them started chatting. They talked about the past, amusing anecdotes, and embarrassing moments they'd shared. Willow buried her head in her food, eating intently as if she and they were on different planes of existence. The idle chatter suddenly paused. Serena looked at Willow, seeming genuinely apologetic. "I'm sorry, I forgot about you. Have you and Chief Thornton done anything interesting together?" One sentence pushed Willow into an extremely ridiculous situation. What interesting things could she and Damen Thornton possibly have done? Just as Willow was about to answer, someone at the next table suddenly exclaimed, "Watch out!" The next second, the huge crystal chandelier overhead came crashing down. Damen Thornton shouted, "Serena!" He shoved Willow aside, using the momentum to leap across the table, and rolled several times with Serena in his arms. And Willow was pushed directly under the path of the crystal chandelier. The sound of shattering crystal exploded in Willow's ears. Customers in the restaurant screamed and scattered. Willow, slightly dazed, reached out to push herself up. A searing pain shot through her palm. Lifting her hand, she saw blood all over her palm and arm. Someone shouted, "Call an ambulance! Oh my God, so much blood." "Is she still alive?" Willow's blurred vision saw a crowd caused setundity, inus her, while not far away, Damen Thornton was holding Serena with no time to check on her condition. She fumbled for her phone, intending to help herself, but before she could reach her pocket, she lost consciousness. She woke up again 5 days later. Her ears were buzzing loudly. Willow opened her eyes and realized the old man in the next bed was watching the local news. Coincidentally, her incident was being reported. A sudden fall of a restaurant chandelier injured 2 people who have been sent to the hospital for treatment. Relevant departments are investigating. Then it cut to surveillance footage from the time and videos uploaded online by concerned passersby. The scene in the footage was a complete mess. The chandelier had smashed onto the floor, scattering everywhere. And amidst those sharp crystal fragments lay a person, covered in blood. But no one cared about her condition. At the end of the footage, in the corner of the screen, Damen Thornton was seen anxiously half-supporting Serena as they walked out, neither showing any obvious major injuries. Willow stared blankly, watching the entire news report. She leaned against the headboard, her mind empty. "You're awake?" A middle-aged woman came in carrying a large bag of fruit. Seeing Willow's eyes open, she sat down on the edge of the bed, her face full of distress. Seeing the visitor, Willow's tightly furrowed brow relaxed a little. "Mom, why did you come?" Martha Hawthorne's eyes were bloodshot. It looked like she had stayed up all night, but she didn't care at all. She took her daughter's hand, wanting to say something, but when she opened her mouth, only tears welled up. Fighting them back, she finally just hugged Willow tightly, choking out, "It's Mom who has wronged you." She had seen everything of how Damen Thornton had treated her daughter these past few years, but weighed down by the debt of saving her life, she really couldn't say much. Fortunately, this torment was about to end. Hearing her mother's choked sobs, Willow's heart also ached. She hugged her back. "What are you saying? If it weren't for you, I would have died in that snowstorm long ago." Mother and daughter held each other quietly for a while, their emotions calming down. Martha Hawthorne then spoke about Willow's condition. "The doctor said there are multiple lacerations, but thankfully no tendons were injured. You should be fine after half a month of rest." Half a month. There was still half a month until she could get her divorce certificate. Perfect. Being hospitalized also saved her the trouble of dealing with Damen Thornton. She asked casually, "Has he been here?" They both knew who he referred to. Chapter 8. Martha Hawthorne choked, wanting to lie to make her daughter feel better. But Willow had already seen through it, shrugging indifferently. "It's better if he doesn't come. Looking at him makes me sick." Martha Hawthorne looked at her daughter with love and guilt, wanting to comfort her but not knowing where to start. Fortunately, fortune and misfortune go hand in hand. During Willow's hospitalization, she received a reply from the university she had applied to. They offered her a chance, but required her to first submit an online interview video. Singing with her voice wasn't difficult. The hard part was where to find recording equipment now. She hadn't touched this profession for 3 years, and the equipment she had saved up to buy had long since been sold off, passing through who knows how many hands. After much thought, only a leaner Thornton had this capability. Willow considered for a long time before making the call while Martha Hawthorne was out. It had been a long time since she had spoken to a leaner Thornton. A leaner Thornton, on the other end, sounded fairly natural. "Are you feeling better?" Willow replied politely. "I'll be discharged soon." Then she stated her purpose directly. A leaner Thornton, of course, agreed readily, then paused and added, "Damen has been busy lately, so he hasn't come to see you. Don't take it to heart." Willow froze for a moment, then smiled. "Yes, I know." Of course, he was busy. Busy winning Serena Sterling's favor, busy peacocking. For the past half-month, gossip about young Master Thornton pursuing his true love had been flying everywhere. Because the chandelier incident had exposed Serena Sterling, Serena's husband from abroad had furiously pursued her back to the country. The 3 of them were entangled in a mess, with headlines even asking, "Can young Master Thornton win back his first love?" Everyone tacitly assumed that she, young Mrs. Thornton, didn't exist. As Willow hung up the phone, she heard a leaner Thornton add, "No matter what, please make an appearance at the celebration gala 2 weeks from now. It's good for everyone to part on good terms." It was a request from her lifesaver. She couldn't refuse and agreed. Looking at the date, it was coincidentally the day her cooling-off period ended. Another week passed, and on the day the cooling-off period ended, Willow was also due to be discharged from the hospital. Martha Hawthorne went to get the car first, while Willow handled the discharge procedures alone. The young nurse asked with a hint of concern, "Do you really not need to inform Mr. Thornton?" Willow felt it was inexplicable. "Why should I tell him?" The nurse said matter-of-factly, "He has always been very concerned about your condition." Willow interrupted her, "No need." Concerned about her condition? In his dreams, perhaps. What a joke. Willow first went to City Hall with Martha Hawthorne to get the divorce certificate, following the same procedure as before. The clerk was initially a bit suspicious, but seeing her limping leg and remembering the previous news, they quickly processed it. At the same time, their impression of Damen Thornton worsened. Upon receiving the divorce certificate, Willow's heart finally settled. She didn't want to go back to that shared home. Fortunately, there weren't many things inside. If she didn't want them, she didn't want them. Just as she settled down at her mother's place, Damen Thornton's call came. Full of accusation, "You've been discharged?" Willow didn't much care about his emotional fluctuations. "Yes." The dissatisfaction on the other end intensified. "Why didn't you tell me? I'm coming home right now." "No need, I'm not at home." The phone was silent for a second before his tone deepened. "What do you mean, not at home?" Willow suddenly felt this person talked a lot of nonsense. She replied casually, "It means I'm not at home. See you at the celebration gala." She hung up first. This was the first time in 3 years she had actively hung up on Damen Thornton. However, a man with such strong pride as Damen Thornton would definitely call back to get to the bottom of it. Sure enough, the phone rang again. She turned it off directly. The world was quiet. Anyway, Damen Thornton wouldn't come looking for her. He wouldn't care if she lived or died. Otherwise, why hadn't he shown his face even once during her month-long hospital stay, not even bothering to put on a superficial act? Chapter 9, 8 p.m., the celebration gala. Willow Hawthorne deliberately wore the only gift Damen Thornton had ever given her and arrived at the banquet hall punctually. Although the cast was off, she still wasn't quite used to high heels, so she wore a pair of flats. A waiter eagerly asked about her companion. Just as Willow was about to speak, she caught sight of Damen Thornton and Serena Sterling getting out of a car, arm in arm. The three of them met eyes at the main entrance. Serena quickly released Damien's arm, her expression somewhat urgent, as if wanting to explain something. Willow, limping slightly and with some difficulty, walked over and naturally linked her arm with Damen Thornton's. "I'm with Mr. Thornton." Damen Thornton's peripheral vision caught Serena and his hand started to pull back. But Willow didn't give him the chance, gripping his arm tightly, almost forcibly restraining him. As a result, as soon as they entered the banquet hall, Damen immediately flung off her hand, his expression unpleasant. It was called a celebration gala, but it was actually a social battlefield. Everyone knew how to read the room. Since even Damen Thornton didn't pay Willow any mind, others were even more blatant. "Is that woman in the red dress young Mrs. Thornton? My heavens, that's an old model from 2 or 3 years ago. Isn't she embarrassed to wear it out and shame the Thornton family? And what are those shoes? Where would young Master Thornton find the time to care what she wears now? Didn't you see that the young master of the Smith family is here today too? There's definitely going to be a good show later." Willow heard everything clearly, but leisurely sipped her drink in a corner, occasionally glancing in Damen Thornton's direction. He was like a knight protecting his flower, firmly shielding Serena Sterling from all possible harm. Young Mrs. Thornton, drinking alone and feeling down? A flippant, teasing voice. Willow turned her head. It was someone who had business dealings with the Thornton family, surnamed Miller, she thought. Despite having the divorce certificate, she was still young Mrs. Thornton in name today, so she maintained her etiquette. "Mr. Miller, good evening. Mr. Miller, after greeting her, didn't leave but instead took a step closer. "Shall I have a couple of drinks with young Mrs. Thornton?" As he spoke, his hand suggestively moved towards Willow. Even a fool could see Mr. Miller's intentions. Her face darkened and she sidestepped, sternly reminding him, "Please have some self-respect." Mr. Miller, his pride wounded, changed his expression instantly, grabbed her wrist and mocked, "Playing coy are we?" Willow tried to pull her hand away, but he gripped it even tighter. Everyone's attention was on Damen Thornton and Serena Sterling, and no one noticed what was happening here. Suddenly, Willow and Damen Thornton's eyes met across the crowd. Damen quickly noticed Mr. Miller grabbing her hand and started to push through the crowd towards her. Halfway there, someone exclaimed, "Miss Sterling, why are you bleeding?" His steps quickly reversed, without a moment's hesitation. That ray of light dimmed again until it disappeared completely. Willow lowered her eyelids, glancing at her phone screen. 9 o'clock, 2 hours until her 11 o'clock train ticket. She thought for a moment, then her free hand reached for a wine glass. With a clang, she smashed it on Mr. Miller's head, answering him, playing polite. Mr. Miller was stunned by the blow. Just as he was about to retaliate after recovering, security guards, alerted by the noise, escorted him out. Willow looked down at her wine-stained gown, then turned to go to the powder room to deal with it. After all, she still had to speak as the nominal young Mrs. Thornton later. 9:30. The stubborn wine stain just wouldn't come out. Willow scrubbed with all her might. Marcus Davies' voice came through the microphone. "We are gathered here joyfully today for another purpose to witness Mr. Damien Thornton's proposal to Miss Serena Sterling." A huge uproar erupted from the guests. Then the microphone went silent, replaced only by a lively, chaotic murmur of conversations. Willow's scrubbing hand suddenly stopped. No wonder Eleanor Thornton had insisted she attend. It wasn't for her to appear as young Mrs. Thornton, but to publicly shed that identity. She had thought Eleanor Thornton had some affection for her, so she had always harbored a subtle sense of apology. It turned out to be utter exploitation from start to finish. Willow sat blankly in front of the mirror for a moment. 10 o'clock. She made up her mind, left early, and slipped out quietly through the back door. 11 o'clock. The station was deserted. Willow, carrying very little luggage, boarded the long-distance bus on time. She had done all she could. Willow Hawthorne's life, like a summer bloom, was finally about to blossom brightly. Chapter 10, Damien Thornton, finally managed to brush off Marcus Davies' teasing and settle Serena Sterling. He turned to look towards the bar area, but it was empty. His face immediately tensed. He instructed Marcus, "Take care of Serena." He himself strode towards the bar and asked the bartender, "The man and woman who were here earlier?" He had clearly called security over to check the situation. The bartender answered honestly. The man was kicked out. The lady seemed to have gone to the powder room. Damien went to the powder room and knocked before entering. It was completely empty, not a soul in sight. An inexplicable panic seized him. He quickly took out his phone and called Willow Hawthorne. "Sorry, the number you have dialed is temporarily out of service." The mechanical female voice was icily cold. Had she blocked him? What was she angry about? Angry that he hadn't gone to see her, or angry that he hadn't rescued her in time just now? Serena Sterling, her face full of worry, came looking for him. "Where's Willow? I haven't seen her since just now. Is she angry?" Damien was extremely annoyed. Why had this usually magnanimous person become so petty recently, always disappearing at the drop of a hat? "Don't worry about her. She'll be fine after a few days of sulking by herself." Just as he was speaking, Eleanor Thornton also approached. "Damien, Serena, you're both here. Perfect." She walked in, closed the door, and looked at them lovingly. "I organized this celebration gala with another purpose in mind. It would be best if you two got engaged today." Both Damien Thornton and Serena Sterling were shocked. "Mother, what are you talking about? I'm already married." That was also why he had refused Marcus Davies' teasing earlier. Eleanor Thornton froze, looking at Damien suspiciously. "Didn't Willow tell you? Then how did you get the divorce certificate?" Damien's mind went blank for a moment. "What divorce certificate?" "Yours and Willow's divorce certificate." She took out her phone and showed him a photo. It was the cover and inside of a divorce certificate. The date was very recent, a week ago. A week ago? Wasn't that the day Willow Hawthorne was discharged from the hospital? She had been in the hospital for about a month in total. Didn't that mean she had gone to register for divorce the day after their anniversary? Damien mentally retraced the dates, growing more alarmed with each step. No wonder the person who never went out in the morning suddenly left so early, without any explanation. No wonder she suddenly threw away so many things. No wonder she didn't contact him at all during her month-long hospital stay. So she had been plotting this all along, but the divorce agreement required both parties' signatures. Willow Hawthorne could never have imitated his signature without his permission. Damien suddenly remembered that on the night of their anniversary, as he was rushing out, Willow had mentioned some agreement, and he had told her to handle it as she saw fit. Fine, this was how she handled it. Damien Thornton's gaze turned cold as he emphasized. "I didn't sign that divorce agreement. It doesn't count if she had told me it was a divorce agreement." Eleanor Thornton interrupted him. "If you had known it was a divorce agreement, what then? You wouldn't have signed it. You'd spend your whole life with Willow? A lifetime. Those two words seemed too distant. Eleanor Thornton's tone softened a little. Since Serena is back now, and you and Willow are already divorced, why not take this opportunity to get back together? It would also put one of my worries to rest. The two were a well-matched couple, similar in family background and experience. She also understood Serena's forced marriage. This was an ideal match. Damen Thornton, however, looked bewildered, still pondering what Eleanor Thornton had just said. Spend a lifetime with Willow Hawthorne? He had never imagined it, but he had also never imagined a life without her. Chapter 11, after a brief moment of panic, Damen Thornton calmed down. Mother, let's not talk about the engagement for now. Back then, Willow Hawthorne had done so many unreasonable things to marry him. How could she just divorce him like that? It was probably a photoshopped image, designed to make him panic and apologize. The more Damen thought about it, the more likely it seemed. He signaled for Eleanor Thornton not to mention it again. Serena Sterling, who had been silent all along, helped Eleanor Thornton out. Aunt Eleanor, there might be a misunderstanding. Please don't worry yet. Eleanor Thornton sighed. She didn't understand her son's thoughts but respected his decision. During the latter half of the celebration gala, Damen Thornton was somewhat absent-minded. His gaze kept drifting towards the powder room, always feeling that Willow Hawthorne would walk out at any moment. But he didn't see her shadow again until the banquet ended. Marcus Davies saw off a group of friends and came to Damen Thornton's side, punching him on the shoulder. What are you thinking about? Such a great opportunity today, and you didn't seize it. If you had actually proposed, what would that Smith fellow have to do with anything? Over the past 3 years, Marcus Davies had often instigated him like this, and back then, he would just smile. But today, it sounded particularly jarring. Damen Thornton turned and stared at Marcus Davies, reminding him, I am already married to Willow Hawthorne. Unfortunately, Marcus Davies didn't read between the lines, still thinking he was troubled by this marital relationship, and said indifferently, getting a divorce is so simple. It's not too late to propose first and then get divorced. Upon hearing the word divorce, Damen Thornton's temples throbbed. His face turned cold, and he ignored Marcus Davies. He went home with Serena Sterling. Opening the door to his home, he realized for the first time how dark, empty, and quiet this house was. He subconsciously looked towards the sofa, still clinging to a sliver of hope. Willow used to sit there waiting for him, but today it was just empty. Serena Sterling sensed something was wrong with him. Thinking about their conversation in the powder room earlier, she comforted him. Maybe it's just a misunderstanding. Why don't you go check her room? Damen Thornton, however, shook his head. There's no need. She would come back. Willow Hawthorne couldn't leave him. He was very sure of that. But days passed, and there was no sign of Willow Hawthorne returning. Her phone number changed from out of service to non-existent, cutting off even his last thread of hope for finding her. This anger was lasting far too long. Damen Thornton thought this, yet he felt inexplicably restless. After much deliberation, he thought of someone. In a small suburban bungalow, Martha Hawthorne expressionlessly poured Damen Thornton a glass of plain water and placed it thud in front of him. The coffee table and sofa were a size too small. His legs couldn't stretch out properly and had to be uncomfortably propped up. But Damen Thornton didn't utter a single word of complaint. He didn't even glance at the tea, asking urgently, Mom, where did she go? Martha Hawthorne frowned, correcting him, I'm not your mother. Damen Thornton was taken aback and had to obediently change his address. Aunt Martha, can you tell me her whereabouts? Right now, the only person in the world who might know Willow Hawthorne's whereabouts was her adoptive mother. Martha Hawthorne still maintained a stern face. I don't know. Damen Thornton didn't believe her for a second, his tone growing more urgent. You're her mother, how could you not know? He had a stubble around his mouth, looking decadent and pitiful. Martha Hawthorne sighed and answered seriously, I really don't know. She left with just simple luggage. She had thought about asking for her whereabouts too, but then decided against it. Let her daughter enjoy her rare freedom. Chapter 12, Damen Thornton couldn't get any information from Martha Hawthorne. He tried to investigate other leads, but found that Willow Hawthorne had dedicated herself almost entirely to her home these past few years, with no regular social circle. Just like that, she had vanished into thin air. Damen Thornton didn't just accept it. He used a vast amount of manpower, energy, and financial resources to find her. He turned the world upside down, but couldn't find a single hair. This reckless waste of resources caused dissatisfaction among the board of directors, who reported directly to Eleanor Thornton. Eleanor Thornton, left with no choice, summoned Damen Thornton back. "Come home for a bit, I have something to tell you." Damen had a gut feeling it was related to Willow Hawthorne and immediately drove back. Eleanor Thornton sat quietly on the sofa, a thick file resting on the coffee table. He wanted to ask, but his eyes caught the file's title first. Contractual marriage agreement. Every word was familiar, yet they combined into something he couldn't comprehend. Or rather, he didn't want to comprehend. His heart trembled as he picked it up. Page by page, he flipped through the clauses, detailed down to laundry and cooking, each appearing like a mocking face. So, Willow Hawthorne's meticulous care for him was all based on such an agreement? Eleanor Thornton didn't say much, stating concisely, "The agreement has now ended. Her departure is inevitable." Damen Thornton clenched the agreement tightly, gritting his teeth. An unspeakable anger mixed with immense sorrow formed an emotional vortex, but he wasn't swept away by the vortex. He calmly asked, "Then you should know her whereabouts, right?" The agreement clearly stated that she would be helped with her future arrangements. She had previously said she was a music major. With this opportunity, she would likely choose to study abroad. The more he thought, the more he felt his deduction was correct. A light gradually appeared in his eyes as he anxiously awaited Eleanor Thornton's answer. But Eleanor Thornton just shook her head. "I'm afraid I have to disappoint you. I don't know." Willow Hawthorne had asked her for many things, even preparing a set of high-end audio equipment. But in the end, none of it was used. When she saw Damen Thornton gradually descending into madness, she had thought of secretly persuading Willow to come back and see him, but she couldn't contact her at all. Willow Hawthorne hadn't just vanished from Damen Thornton's life, she had vanished from hers as well. Damen Thornton refused to believe it, yet he had no choice but to. Once again rejecting Eleanor Thornton's suggestion of a marriage between him and Serena Sterling, he returned home, expressionless. The house was a mess, shirts and trousers strewn on the floor, along with some empty liquor bottles. He disliked strangers in his home, so Willow had always been the one to clean up. But now she was gone. Serena Sterling had also moved out the day after the celebration gala. He hadn't stopped her. Even he himself was surprised. Damen Thornton threw himself onto the sofa, blending into the darkness. His phone suddenly rang sharply. Marcus Davies sounded somewhat panicked on the other end. "Chief Thornton, come quickly, something's happened to Renai." He abruptly got up, dressed, and rushed to Marcus Davies' location. It was a certain bar. Serena Sterling was having a small gathering with friends. Victor Smith somehow found them. They exchanged a few words, things didn't go well, and Smith started to get violent. The bartender had already been beaten and sent to the hospital. Damen Thornton already had a smoldering anger in his heart. Seeing Victor Smith being so arrogant, he exploded instantly. The two men scuffled and both ended up at the police station. Serena Sterling, her face full of distress, dabbed at Damen Thornton's wounds, inevitably anxious. "Why did you fight him?" Their physical builds were not in the same league at all. Damen let her tend to his wounds, then suddenly spoke, "Let's get married." Chapter 13, What? Victor Smith, standing nearby, clenched his fists again. "Have you no shame?" Serena Sterling also lowered her hand, looking at Damen Thornton seriously. "Do you know what you're saying?" Damen Thornton met her gaze earnestly. "I know. Willow Hawthorne and I are already divorced, so there won't be any problems. Instead of wasting your life with this hothead, why don't you be with me?" After he finished speaking, Serena Sterling's face instantly turned cold, and she distanced herself from him. "Chief Thornton, you should know I've only ever seen you as an older brother figure." For so many years, she had few close friends, and Damen Thornton was one of them, always extending a helping hand when she was isolated and helpless, including this time when she fled back to the country. It was true that she had been in love with Damen Thornton back then, but it was also true that they were now just friends. She now only considered him a friend. She had thought that after hinting so many times, he would at least understand. Damen Thornton hadn't expected this development. He stared blankly at Serena Sterling, reminding her, "But if you don't marry me, you'll be taken back. Are you going to continue to go back and endure beatings and waste your years?" Serena Sterling paused, not replying for a long time. The police came to mediate. Victor Smith, his face full of remorse, held Serena Sterling's hand, repeatedly assuring her it would absolutely not happen again. In the end, Serena Sterling forgave him, and the two bought tickets for the next flight back. Damen Thornton huddled alone in the huge house, like a soulless shell. He shut himself in for 3 days. On the third day, something suddenly occurred to him, and he opened Willow Hawthorne's room. It was so empty. Why hadn't he noticed before how empty her room was? He saw the small cabinet that Willow Hawthorne hadn't had time to tidy up. He pulled it open and found all sorts of things inside: various dolls, anniversary stickers, and a bouquet of dried flowers. It looked very familiar. He looked at the note tucked inside and remembered. These were the flowers he had sent her when she risked her life to save him. He remembered how vibrant they had been then. He hadn't expected them to be preserved here as dried flowers. Then there was the velvet box containing the ring. Seeing the ring still faintly glinting inside, his heart trembled violently. On the bottom shelf of the cabinet lay a neatly folded gown, its collar still bearing an untreated dark wine stain. He knew this was the birthday gift he had given her. He could only recall it thanks to the celebration gala that day. He had heard the gossip from others at the gala that day, something about the dress style being old, the accessories cheap, and so on. Hearing the timeline they mentioned, he then remembered he had casually given her such an item, thinking that on their last wedding anniversary, she had also worn it. Damen Thornton's heart clenched. He reached out and stroked the texture of the fabric, as if gently caressing Willow Hawthorne. Why had he never thought before about how he would spend his future without Willow Hawthorne? He shut himself in his room day after day. Eleanor Thornton, seeing the person who had finally emerged from his shell revert to his previous decadent state, was furious. But no matter how much she reprimanded him, Damen Thornton only hid himself deeper. Gossip surrounding the Thornton family filled countless articles, and someone even wrote a long piece analyzing the love-hate relationships of these individuals. Until an article focusing on Damen Thornton's wife went viral, the internet buzzed with excitement for a while. This excitement also reached a remote, 18th-tier small city. In a lounge bar, young people whispered gossip while a short-haired woman on stage tuned her guitar. Another long-haired woman walked over and patted her shoulder. "Summer Bloom, did you see today's trending topics?" Chapter 14, the woman called Summer Bloom looked up. Her appearance was very similar to young Mrs. Thornton from the gossip, but her demeanor was more resolute and free-spirited. This was Willow Hawthorne's 3rd month performing at the Twilight Bar, and she had already become a mainstay. The long-haired woman speaking was Roxanne Bell, the owner of the Twilight Bar. Back then, Willow had left Bridgewater overnight, not following any of the paths Eleanor Thornton had planned for her. She had even given up on the university she had applied to. She didn't have any particular plan. At that moment, she simply needed a place where no one knew her to start over. Willow Hawthorne smiled, brushing Roxanne's hand away. "I don't have time to check trending topics." Because as soon as she went online, it was flooded with news about the Thornton family. She wasn't interested and didn't want to get involved. Whether Damen Thornton had gone mad, become foolish, or lost his mind, it had nothing to do with her. Roxanne tutted twice, her gaze flicking to a corner, and she jutted her chin. "He's here again, really not going to give him a chance?" In the corner sat a sunny, boyish young man. After making eye contact with Roxanne, he smiled and waved, then turned his gaze back to Willow Hawthorne, his eyes full of tender admiration. Willow Hawthorne merely glanced at him lightly. No chance. 3 years of torment had left her temporarily uninterested in men. The answer was also what Roxanne had expected. She raised her phone, getting back to work. "Let's take today's flash photo. Thanks to you, the shop's account followers are skyrocketing." Willow Hawthorne put on her baseball cap as usual, pulling the brim low. Her long fingers swept across the guitar strings, and she began to sing a gentle, elegant English song. Back then, to study abroad, she had specifically practiced her spoken English. She hadn't expected to use it here. An elderly gentleman in the audience cast a surprised gaze, silently memorizing Willow Hawthorne's face. The song went viral, spreading like wildfire across major platforms. Roxanne was overjoyed, the Twilight Bar's traffic surged. Only Willow Hawthorne felt a faint unease. Although she wore a baseball cap and kept a low profile, there was no guarantee that acquaintances wouldn't recognize her. Moreover, now that there were more people, there were always some without a sense of boundaries who would try to take a picture of her face. Every day, Willow Hawthorne had to wait until closing, change her clothes, before she could go home with peace of mind. Despite such caution, she still encountered unforeseeable trouble. This day, she had just changed her clothes and was pushing her small electric scooter out. A dark figure blocked the alleyway. Seeing the dark figure from afar, Willow Hawthorne became vigilant. But this was an 18th-tier small city. There might not even be many surveillance cameras on the main streets, let alone in a nook and cranny alley like this. Willow Hawthorne retreated, prudently choosing self-preservation, intending to go back to the Twilight Bar first. She had just turned around when the dark figure, clatter, 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 ran towards her at an accelerated pace. The back door of the Twilight Bar was a rusty iron gate. Willow Hawthorne took out her key and hurriedly tried to unlock it, but the dark figure was still a step faster, pinning her against the door. "Teacher Summer Bloom, I really, really like you." The person was extremely frenzied, shouting Willow Hawthorne's alias while puckering his lips, trying to kiss her. Willow Hawthorne tried to break free, but found that this madman's grip was extraordinarily strong, making her hands ache. "What are you doing?" With a roar, a figure rushed over swiftly, landing a solid kick on the madman's right waist, sending him flying 5 steps away. Willow Hawthorne, still shaken, looked at the newcomer and froze slightly. "You haven't left yet." The person before her was the sunny, puppy dog-like young man who came every day and sat in the same spot. Leo Sterling, seeing Willow Hawthorne up close, felt his heart pound. Hearing that she still recognized him, his heart beat even faster. He stammered an explanation, "I just happened to be passing by here." Chapter 15. Willow Hawthorne glanced at the time. 3 in the morning. This place was in the middle of nowhere. She really didn't know how he happened to be out here. She didn't expose the young man's little thoughts, just nodded her thanks. "Thank you, I'll buy you a drink tomorrow." Leo Sterling, seeing she was about to leave just like that, took a step sideways to block her. Then, realizing this action was no different from the madman's earlier, he retracted it, but then suggested pitifully, "It's somewhat unsafe for you to go back alone. How about I ride my bike and escort you?" Willow Hawthorne looked at her own small electric scooter. "I have one." Leo Sterling waved his hands repeatedly. "What I mean is, I'll ride my bike behind you. I won't follow you all the way home, just make sure you get home safely." Understanding he meant well, Willow Hawthorne didn't dwell on it further. The two became acquainted because of this incident. Slowly, Willow Hawthorne learned his name was Leo Sterling, a university student from a foreign university, currently on a leave of absence. When she asked about the reason for his leave, he looked like he couldn't speak of it, so Willow didn't press further. But at least Willow Hawthorne had made her second friend in the city. On the other side of Bridgewater, Damen Thornton stared blankly at the videos circulating everywhere on the platform. The voice of the person in the video was gentle and low, like a babbling brook, narrating softly. The figure in the video was so familiar, yet he didn't dare to recognize her. Could it really be her? How could she be in such a remote place? After that English song, he had started following this lounge bar. Whenever a similar figure appeared, he would save the video. From initial confirmation to eventual repeated viewings, it was like quenching thirst by looking at plums, until he saw a man's figure frequently appearing in the frame. Whether on the left or right, he could always see the same man in the corner, looking at the singing woman with eyes full of admiration. Who was he? Was he already with this Summer Bloom? This uncertainty tormented Damen Thornton to the point of madness. This Summer Bloom, was it really her? He was eager to confirm, and in his eagerness, he made a decision that he would regret for the rest of his life. In the small city, Willow Hawthorne had a rare day off and had arranged to go out with Leo Sterling for a walk to relax. Just as she stepped out, she received a call. The person on the other end said something, and Willow's originally smiling face immediately darkened, her lips turning down. "What did you say?" She hung up the phone, immediately bought a ticket, and didn't forget to find time to apologize to Leo Sterling. "Sorry, something urgent came up." Leo Sterling didn't ask further, immediately taking her to the station and asking with concern, "Do you need me to go with you?" Willow Hawthorne's expression was terrifyingly cold. "No need." As evening approached, she arrived in Bridgewater. Ignoring her exhaustion, she went directly to the city center hospital. After asking for the ward number, she walked over quickly. 2 bodyguards stood at the door, blocking her. "Hello, unauthorized personnel are not allowed." Willow Hawthorne glanced at them. Their faces were very familiar. They were the Thornton family's bodyguards. Her face was cold as she squeezed out a few words through gritted teeth. "I am her daughter." The bodyguards flinched and silently made way. Willow Hawthorne opened the ward door and at a glance saw Martha Hawthorne lying quietly in bed, tubes inserted all over her body. The person who usually called her name gently was now hanging on by a thread, barely breathing. "Willow," a disbelieving cry came from the doorway. Willow Hawthorne looked over, hatred flaring in her eyes. She strode over quickly. Slap! A slap landed squarely on Damen Thornton's face. Damen Thornton's head was whipped violently to the side. The bodyguards tensed, about to protect him. Damen Thornton waved his hand, signaling them it was all right, and even closed the ward door. Chapter 16, Willow Hawthorne trembled with anger, questioning, "Do you people have any bottom line? I accepted your kindness. I wasn't sold to you. The agreement is over. What more do you want?" She had received a call from a neighbor, saying that the Thornton family had come looking for Martha Hawthorne. They didn't know what was said, but Martha suddenly jumped from upstairs, and the neighbor urged her to come back quickly. Damen Thornton, caught off guard by the word agreement, blurted out, "Your feelings for me. Were they all just part of the agreement? Was there not a shred of sincerity?" The ward was so quiet you could hear a pin drop. Willow Hawthorne hadn't expected that in such a situation, Damen Thornton's first question would be whether she had any genuine feelings. She forced a sarcastic smile, staring at him coldly, emphasizing each word, "No. I was just acting according to the agreement. As for who my contractual husband was, I didn't care. It could have been you, or it could have been anyone else." Satisfied? Damen Thornton had never seen such a ruthless expression on her face, as if there was a deep-seated hatred between them. Willow Hawthorne gritted her teeth and warned, "I will pursue this matter to the end. Get out." Willow Hawthorne stayed by the hospital bed for a whole week before Martha Hawthorne finally woke up. The first moment Martha saw Willow, tears streamed down her face. It's Mom who is useless, letting them still have the nerve to come and demand someone. Since we owe them, let Mom pay it back with this life. After saying this, she fell back into a coma. While watching over her, Willow had checked the surveillance footage from home. First, Damen Thornton came to the door, tearfully asking for her whereabouts. After being rebuffed, Eleanor Thornton came, using a combination of threats and inducements, saying that if Willow Hawthorne was willing to sign another agreement, she could name her terms. Martha Hawthorne had cursed her away. Both had been turned away. The third time, Marcus Davies came with several thugs, his mouth spewing threats about how Willow Hawthorne owed the Thornton family a life, and so on. Martha Hawthorne had already been driven mad. She screamed that she would repay this life for her daughter, and then jumped directly from the residential building. Willow Hawthorne saved each of those clips, watching them over and over to confirm details with her lawyer, until she became numb. "Willow, eat something." Damen Thornton, shamelessly, brought food again, trying to console her in a low voice. Willow Hawthorne looked at the person in a deep coma on the hospital bed, her face filled only with disgust for Damen Thornton. "Get out." This wasn't the first time Damen Thornton had brought something, nor would it be the last. Damen Thornton, losing face, put the items aside and said, "Mark was indeed wrong in this matter. I've already sent him to Africa to rough it. Whatever compensation you want, you can ask for it." Willow Hawthorne stared at him coldly. "I want my mom alive and well. I want Marcus Davies lying here." That shut Damen Thornton up. During this period, Eleanor Thornton also came several times, bringing her ridiculous agreement, trying to buy out a few more years of Willow Hawthorne's good life. "Mrs. Thornton, are you a human trafficker?" Willow Hawthorne only asked this one question, and Eleanor Thornton never came again. The Thornton family didn't take it seriously, thinking Martha Hawthorne could recover. But after half a year in this vegetative state, Martha Hawthorne still couldn't survive the harsh winter and quietly stopped breathing on a winter night. Willow Hawthorne cried until she dry heaved, cried until she was numb, cried until her eye sockets ached. Half a month before the spring festival, she personally buried Martha Hawthorne. From now on, she was truly an orphan. In the sub-zero temperature, she knelt before the tombstone for an entire night. The next day, she was found by the cemetery management staff and taken to the hospital. Fortunately, she received timely treatment and her knees were saved. Chapter 17. The first thing Willow Hawthorne saw when she woke up was Damen Thornton sitting by her bed. Seeing her awake, he asked with nervous concern, "Are you okay? Are you uncomfortable anywhere? Why were you outside alone for so long? You scared me to death." It sounded like incessant, caring chatter. A side of Damen Thornton that Willow Hawthorne had never seen before. But he was indeed one of the accomplices in her mother's death. Willow Hawthorne's expression didn't change at all. She informed him calmly, "I've already taken you to court. From now on, unless absolutely necessary, we will only meet in court." Damen Thornton's chattering voice came to an abrupt halt. His fingertips trembled. This day had finally come. When he had taken Martha Hawthorne to the hospital, he had prayed that nothing would happen, otherwise, he would live his entire life in endless regret. He had hired the best doctors and equipment in the world, but they could only keep Martha Hawthorne barely alive. Seeing Willow Hawthorne repeatedly watch the surveillance footage of them harassing Martha, then looking up at him with an indifferent, empty gaze, Damen Thornton knew it was already irreparable. Going to court for the Thornton family's legal team was not a big deal. But for Damen Thornton, it was proof that Willow Hawthorne had completely become his enemy. His original intention was to make Willow Hawthorne come back voluntarily. He hadn't expected one wrong step to lead to a cascade of errors until he lost everything. Damen Thornton looked at Willow Hawthorne like a kite with a broken string, not knowing where it would fly, but always further and further away from him. He stared at her intently, his voice trembling. "Willow, give me a chance to make amends. I really didn't mean it. I just wanted you to come back." Willow, I was really wrong." Willow Hawthorne closed her eyes wearily, uttering a cool sentence. "Damen Thornton, you make me sick." There was no other sound in the room for a long time. Thud! Willow Hawthorne opened her eyes in surprise and saw Damen Thornton kneeling by the bed. The high and mighty young Master Thornton, just like that, humbly knelt by the bed, his eyes full of pleading. "I'll hand Marcus Davies over to you. Sue me however you want, send me to jail, it's all fine. Just don't disappear on me." She didn't understand his actions. "Damen Thornton, what are you doing now? Do you love me?" Or was it simply that he disliked the feeling of people and things being out of his control? Damen Thornton's body stiffened, his mouth as if struck dumb, unable to answer. Did he love her? He didn't know. He only knew he had to give everything to keep her. Willow Hawthorne felt unamused. She let him kneel, saying no more. Damen Thornton seemed to have found a way to pass the days, coming to kneel whenever he had free time. Willow Hawthorne emotionlessly continued to communicate with her lawyer. The lawyer, looking at the young Master Thornton kneeling so proficiently, could only suppress her surprise. The court summons was officially issued. According to regulations, the parties involved were not allowed to meet. Willow Hawthorne finally enjoyed some rare peace and quiet, but Damen Thornton, unable to kneel in the ward, actually knelt just like that outside the ward. This caused passing patients to stare in amazement, and reporters flocked to the scene. It forced Willow Hawthorne to decide to be discharged temporarily. On the day of her discharge, Damen Thornton, having somehow gotten the news, was waiting outside. As soon as he saw Willow Hawthorne, he immediately came up to her. "Let's go home." Willow Hawthorne took a step back, distancing herself from him. "What home? I don't have a home." Damen Thornton's hand fell empty. He looked at her, aggrieved and sad. "Can't you give me a chance to make amends?" Those words sounded particularly ridiculous coming from his mouth. Willow Hawthorne's eyes were sharp. "A chance to make amends? How will you make amends? Continue kneeling day and night? If you kneel like this, will my mother come back? Stop deluding yourself. The trial is in 2 months. Get ready. I won't rest until this is over." She carried her meager luggage down the stairs. Her figure, though lonely, was strong. Chapter 18. Brenda Shaw, the lawyer handling Willow Hawthorne's case, had a vacant property. Willow rented it at market price and focused intently on preparing for the trial. Damen Thornton, somehow finding her new address, eagerly sent a pile of daily necessities on the first day, all of which she redirected to her neighbors. Seeing this tactic didn't work, Damen Thornton changed his approach. sending a large collection of rare records and top-tier music equipment. Willow Hawthorne donated everything directly to a television station and some private collectors, like an impenetrable fortress. Damen Thornton grew increasingly anxious. Once the trial began, he would have no more chances. Willow Hawthorne and Brenda became more familiar. Brenda, watching the Thornton family members pile up at the door, looked at Willow with concern. "Aren't you afraid he'll resort to extreme measures?" Willow chuckled lightly. "Then I'll let him know what true extremes are." While she was preparing for the trial, Roxanne and Leo Sterling had both called to express their concern. She reassured them all, not wanting them to get too involved in her private life. "Miss Hawthorne, they've delivered a party involved in the case." Brenda suddenly sat up straight, calling out to Willow. Willow looked down from the window. Marcus Davies was bound hand and foot, his mouth gagged with a cloth, writhing and whimpering. Seeing Marcus Davies, the fire in Willow's heart flared up, and she gritted her back teeth. She remained relatively calm and asked, "The maximum penalty, how severe can it be?" Brenda Shaw pondered before answering, "At most, 3 years." 3 years in prison wouldn't bring back her mother's life. Her eyes darkened. Brenda Shaw hurriedly advised, "Don't be impulsive, let the law handle it." Willow Hawthorne was non-committal, instead persuading Brenda to leave first. Afraid she might do something foolish in a moment of clouded judgment, Brenda kept looking back as she left, earnestly reminding her, "Vigilante justice is illegal. Let's follow the rules and regulations." Willow Hawthorne responded perfunctorily. After Brenda left, she put on her coat and went downstairs. The moment Marcus Davies saw her, fear flickered in his eyes, and he whimpered and squirmed, as if begging her for mercy. Damen Thornton was truly willing to go to great lengths. After all, Marcus Davies was arguably his only remaining good friend, yet he had actually just packed him up and sent him over. Willow Hawthorne's fingers trembled. The main culprit was right here. She could personally deal with him as she pleased. She could even make him jump from a tall building, a life for a life. She looked at the black car parked not far away. Since she moved here, that car had been parked downstairs. It didn't take a genius to know who it belonged to. She walked towards the car, pulled open the door directly, and met Damen Thornton's astonished eyes. "Take us to the cemetery." Willow Hawthorne escorted Marcus Davies to her mother's grave and pushed him hard to the ground. Marcus Davies' head hit the edge of the tombstone, drawing blood that stained the stone red. "Apologize, admit your mistake." Marcus Davies used his shoulders for leverage, knelt properly, and kowtowed repeatedly, physiological tears welling up in his eyes from the impact. After a few kowtows, he felt the pain and stopped moving. Willow Hawthorne kicked him, her voice cold. "Did I say you could stop?" He hurriedly started kowtowing again. If Willow Hawthorne didn't say stop, he wouldn't dare to stop. Half an hour passed. The ground in front of the tombstone was already stained with blood, and Marcus Davies' forehead had a large, bloody gash. He could no longer feel the pain. Willow Hawthorne finally deigned to say, "Enough." The moment she stopped, Marcus Davies fainted. Willow Hawthorne came to the car. Damen Thornton immediately sat up straight, anxiously awaiting her instructions. Chapter 19, Take Him Back. We'll follow legal procedures from here. Seeing she didn't intend to let the matter drop there, Damen Thornton's lips trembled. "Do whatever you want to him. I guarantee you won't get into trouble." Willow Hawthorne scoffed. "Damen Thornton, your guarantee means nothing. Besides, I don't want any more entanglement with you. Let this lawsuit be their final interaction. From now on, may their paths never cross again." Damen Thornton stared blankly as she turned and walked away. Such a long road, yet she would rather walk back herself than be with him again. The only leverage he had was also lost. He felt as if a piece of him was missing. Marcus Davies groggily woke up, glaring angrily at Damen Thornton, never expecting him to go to such lengths for a woman. After the gag was removed, he shouted in shame and anger. The Thornton and Davies families are done. The two families had been friends for generations. No one ever expected it to end like this. When a leaner Thornton learned of this, her face turned purple with anger. She took a nitroglycerin pill, and the first thing she did after recovering was to find Willow Hawthorne. "What exactly do you want? Do you have to turn the Thornton family upside down to be satisfied?" The usually graceful and dignified Eleanor Thornton lost her composure for the first time. Willow Hawthorne looked at her quietly. Did she still think she was that timid little girl from years ago? Mrs. Thornton, it's not what I want, but what you all want. If you hadn't rashly come to disturb my mother, would things have reached this point? Eleanor Thornton's lips trembled as she argued illogically. That was also to give you a chance. Willow Hawthorne's eyes glinted with sarcasm as she cut her off. Give us a chance, or find another fool to prop up your good-for-nothing son? Watch your words. Then please, Mrs. Thornton, speak normally as well. If there's nothing else, please leave. After all, as a defendant, you need to avoid suspicion. She didn't yield an inch, her retorts leaving Eleanor Thornton speechless. Seeing that being tough wasn't working, Eleanor Thornton's expression softened again. Willow, I know you're not such a heartless person. There have been too many misunderstandings. If you're willing to give Damen a chance to explain. Willow Hawthorne was now impervious to both hard and soft tactics. She maintained a stern face and coldly refused, No, I'm not willing. Please leave. Eleanor Thornton turned and left, her face full of displeasure. There was still a month until the trial. Willow Hawthorne and her lawyer rehearsed over and over. Although her attitude towards the Thornton family was firm, she also knew this would be a tough battle. The Thornton family's legal team was not to be underestimated. Damen Thornton quieted down for a few days, then started causing new trouble. He bought the apartment opposite Willow Hawthorne's. When Willow went out to take out the trash in the morning, she unexpectedly met his gaze. Seeing such a face first thing in the morning was bad luck. She went downstairs expressionlessly, but Damen Thornton followed her, stuffing a business card into her hand. The Thornton family's lawyers are very good. Your lawyer's qualifications might not be enough. You can ask him. Willow Hawthorne looked down. It was indeed a renowned law firm. Had Damen Thornton gone mad? Was he now teaching her how to fight against himself? But offered help was not to be refused. This time, she took the business card. Damen Thornton was very happy and smiled. I can also introduce you to other lawyers. Her face tightened as she refused. No need. Damen Thornton's happiness did not diminish. This was the first time in so long that he had spoken relatively calmly with Willow Hawthorne. Willow Hawthorne read the happiness in his eyes and frowned, puzzled. What on earth was he happy about? Chapter 20. Damen Thornton's excitement level rose, and he followed closely behind her. I remember we used to take out the trash together like this. You even said the osmanthus flowers in the complex smelled wonderful, and you wanted to make osmanthus tea. Willow Hawthorne replied expressionlessly, Yes, and you were busy rushing to see Serena Sterling, impatiently telling me that if I had nothing better to do, I should study some recipes. He immediately fell silent. Had he really treated Willow Hawthorne like that in the past? An unspoken self-reproach welled up in his heart. He wanted to compensate. Let me take you to see the aurora. I know a place. Willow Hawthorne threw the trash into the bin and turned back to interrupt him. What place? The place where you watch the aurora with Serena Sterling? Don't use these tactics to disgust me. Damen Thornton, you're an adult too. Let's part on good terms. Don't embarrass the Thornton family any further. She finished her sentences one by one. Damen Thornton's expression also crumbled step by step. He sensed that these were Willow Hawthorne's heartfelt thoughts. He watched her walk away in a daze, powerless to hold on. Willow Hawthorne had taken every precaution, fearing an accident before the trial. But an accident still occurred. This day, she was returning home from grocery shopping as usual, walking along an empty pedestrian street. The whine of an engine approached rapidly. By the time Willow Hawthorne realized it was coming for her, it was too late to dodge. The moment the speeding sports car crashed into her, she saw Marcus Davies' face in the car, and then Damen Thornton suddenly appeared before her eyes. Bang! After the deafening crash, she lost consciousness. Marcus Davies, hands trembling, called the police, then abandoned the car and fled. When Willow Hawthorne woke up, she felt as if her whole body had been run over by a large truck. There wasn't a part of her that didn't ache. Wanting to get up, she realized one leg was suspended high in the air. Her leg was covered in injuries. Her memory flashed back to the car accident scene. Had Damen Thornton rushed out to protect her, there were no familiar people around. Willow Hawthorne had no choice but to press the nurse call bell. After inquiring about her own condition, she couldn't help but ask, "The person who came with me. How is he?" The nurse answered matter-of-factly, "There's a risk of leg amputation." The doctors are doing their best to save him. Willow Hawthorne's mind went blank for a moment. Amputation? Would he have no legs then? Willow Hawthorne took out her phone and searched for news about the incident. Although the images were pixelated, the bloodstains were still shocking. Why on earth had Damen Thornton done that? She was completely bewildered. Marcus Davies, who committed the hit and run, was apprehended that same night. The Davies family wanted to protect him, but this time, the victim was young Master Thornton. The Davies family couldn't protect him even if they wanted to, and sought to obtain the maximum leniency. Willow Hawthorne, limping on one leg, went to the hearing. Word by word, she accused Marcus Davies of his heinous acts, revealing the fact that Damen Thornton was still lying in a hospital bed, his life uncertain. Eleanor Thornton, for once, stood on the same side as her. In the end, Marcus Davies was sentenced to 40 years in prison. Marcus Davies was dissatisfied and cursed loudly in court. In a matter of a few sentences, he added another 5 years to his sentence. After the verdict was announced, Eleanor Thornton stopped Willow Hawthorne, who was about to leave. She hesitated, her brow furrowed with complex emotions. Willow Hawthorne had nothing to say to her and preempted her. "I no longer owe your Thornton family anything." Eleanor Thornton's expression remained unchanged. She sighed, begging humbly, "Please go see my son. Persuade him to save his legs." "The doctor said there's still a chance, but his will to live is too weak, so there's nothing they can do. Just consider it one last favor for me. I will absolutely never bother you again." Chapter 21. Even if a stranger had asked, Willow Hawthorne would not have refused such a request. But the person before her was not a stranger. She was the one who had harmed her mother. Willow Hawthorne refused with a cold expression. "I have no obligation." Eleanor Thornton shouted, "He's in this situation because he was trying to save you, to have the audacity to push all the blame onto her." The flicker of pity that had just risen in Willow Hawthorne quickly faded. She stared at Eleanor Thornton, seriously refuting, "No, it was you who single-handedly turned the situation into this. If you hadn't been solely focused on Damen Thornton, I wouldn't have had such a conflict with Marcus Davies." Eleanor Thornton stared at her blankly. "But I also saved your life." This sentence made Willow Hawthorne fall silent. After a while, she answered softly, "I would rather have died that year." Then she turned and left decisively. Returning to the hospital, she was met with a barrage of scolding from the nurse. "How could you just run out without saying anything? Even if you didn't want to tell the nurse, you should have at least told your friend." Friend? Did she still have friends in Bridgewater? Just as she thought this, she saw Roxanne sitting by the ward door, her face stern. After checking Willow Hawthorne's condition, the nurse left, muttering under her breath. Willow Hawthorne looked at Roxanne's unhappy face and forced a guilty smile. "Hi." "Hi what? How am I, an ordinary person, fortunate enough to greet the former young Mrs. Thornton? You hid your family situation from me, that's one thing, but even your name was fake. Using a fake name when we first met, I can understand, but are we just newly acquainted? I thought we were already friends." Roxanne's resentment was considerable, and she began to list Willow Hawthorne's offenses. After a long string of complaints, she took a breath, glanced at Willow's plastered leg, rolled her eyes, and softened her tone. "The wound must hurt a lot, right? I saw the news online. I'll take care of you during this time." Willow Hawthorne was both touched and worried. "Then the bar. Leo Sterling is helping to look after it. He knew coming over with me would make you uncomfortable, so he asked me to send his regards. This is his gift for you." It was a rare, out-of-print record. Damen Thornton had given it to her once, but she had passed it on to other collectors. She hadn't expected it to find its way back to her hands after all this time. Only this time, the meaning was different. She was grateful for Leo Sterling's thoughtfulness and put it away carefully. After Roxanne roughly understood her current situation, she asked, "Marcus Davies is already in prison. Are you still going to sue?" Willow Hawthorne paused at the question, but quickly regained her composure. "Sue? To give herself closure, and to give her mother closure." Roxanne didn't say much more, just quietly stayed by her side. Another week passed. Willow Hawthorne's condition improved slightly, and she was able to get out of bed and walk. Roxanne routinely shared outside gossip with her. Damen Thornton refuses to treat his legs. Eleanor Thornton had a stroke from anger. Now the Thornton family is in complete chaos. No one knows how to clean up this mess. Willow Hawthorne listened calmly, noncommittally. Eleanor Thornton had a stroke, Damien Thornton might lose his legs, and the company's stock price plummeted. At the same time, news that Willow Hawthorne was suing the Thornton mother and son was suddenly sensationalized by interested parties, undoubtedly becoming the last straw that broke the camel's back. Eleanor Thornton was carried into Willow Hawthorne's hospital room. The once spirited and elegant woman now looked haggard, her hair lusterless. She tremblingly raised her hand, her facial expression contorted, already unable to utter a complete sentence. Chapter 22, even Willow Hawthorne's hardened heart softened with a pang of sorrow. She propped herself up and sat on the edge of the bed, patiently waiting as Eleanor Thornton managed to get out, one painstaking word at a time. Save his legs. The original was Jiu, Chi, Hui, a sequence of Chinese characters that didn't make sense. The context implies she's asking Willow to save Damien. Save his legs or save Damien makes more sense. I'll go with the implied meaning of saving Damien's legs as per the subsequent plot points. It was obvious what those words meant. Willow Hawthorne lowered her gaze without answering, merely asking the attendant beside her, "Will Mrs. Thornton be like this from now on?" The attendant nodded. She looked at Eleanor Thornton again and agreed, "I will persuade him to save his legs." Only then did Eleanor Thornton relax her hand. This was the first time Willow Hawthorne had stepped into Damien Thornton's hospital room. The smell of disinfectant was strong. A doctor was talking to him about something. He didn't look like a doctor from this hospital. Seeing Willow Hawthorne arrive, the doctor thoughtfully stepped out first. Damien Thornton had still been complaining about the doctor being long-winded, deliberately turning to one side to avoid looking at him. But the room suddenly fell silent. He turned his head and saw the person he thought about day and night standing quietly at the foot of the bed. "Willow," he sat up excitedly, then, remembering something, turned his face away. "I haven't shaved." Willow Hawthorne looked at the face she remembered, sometimes spirited, sometimes cold and indifferent, sometimes pleading pitifully, none of which resembled the current one, so decadent and lifeless, with a scruffy beard and sunken eyes. She didn't care. She pulled over a chair and sat by the bed. "Thank you for pushing me." Damien Thornton thought she was thanking him and quickly said, "Don't feel burdened. I did it willingly." Willow Hawthorne continued, "Back then, at the restaurant, if you hadn't rushed to save Serena Sterling and pushed me, I wouldn't have been completely crushed by the chandelier. At the celebration gala, if Marcus Davies hadn't said those jeering words into the microphone, I wouldn't have made up my mind to leave. So I want to thank you. At least you were a catalyst for my rebirth." Damien Thornton froze. The scenes from before flashed through his mind. Willow Hawthorne, covered in blood, crushed under the chandelier. He hadn't failed to see it. He had just subconsciously assumed she could handle it herself. Marcus Davies jeering at the celebration gala, he had scolded him for it afterwards, but he hadn't realized Willow Hawthorne had heard everything. His lips moved, wanting to defend himself, but he found there was nothing to defend. Willow Hawthorne took a deep breath. "So, there's nothing that can't be overcome. You don't need to destroy your legs to show remorse. Having no legs represents nothing. I will neither forgive you nor look back. No legs just means no legs. It will make your life inconvenient, restricted everywhere. So be mature, accept all the changes calmly, and grasp what you can grasp." She delivered these words without any personal emotion, just calmly, as if persuading a young person who was doing something foolish. Damien Thornton stared at her blankly, then, after a long moment, lowered his head and gave a bitter smile. "You really are different from before." Willow Hawthorne shook her head. "I've always been the same as before. It's just that you never understood me." The conversation ended briefly and peacefully. As she was leaving the ward, Damien Thornton said, "Go talk to my doctor. He was the chief surgeon for your kidney transplant back then." Willow Hawthorne's retreating figure paused for a moment, then she acknowledged and went out. The doctor was waiting just outside the door. Seeing Willow Hawthorne come out, his eyes lit up with pleasure. "Thank you for being willing to persuade him." Willow Hawthorne curved her lips and asked directly, "Excuse me, do you know who the donor who matched with me back then was? I've always wanted to thank them in person, but I haven't found any clues." The doctor looked quite surprised. "Didn't your father tell you?" "Father? What did her father have to do with it? Hadn't her adoptive father passed away just a few months after her marriage? "Doctor, what exactly do you mean?" The doctor told her everything, bit by bit. After Willow Hawthorne heard it all, she fainted. Chapter 23. A day later, Willow Hawthorne leaned against her hospital bed, staring out the window with a numb expression. "Willow, eat something," Roxanne called out, worried. Willow Hawthorne just remained silent. The doctor said her kidney had been obtained through an exchange, her father for someone else. Her father was a match for another person's family member, and that other person happened to be a match for her, so the surgery proceeded logically. At that time, the doctor had just been brought to the hospital by a leaner Thornton to perform a task, so he had been the chief surgeon for her father. However, right after the surgery, he was urgently called back and didn't follow up on the post-operative recovery. This led to her adoptive father developing an infection and passing away quickly. So, from beginning to end, the kidney resource was found by her father. Willow Hawthorne had never felt such absurdity and hatred. She closed her eyes, took a deep breath, and when she opened them again, there was only determination. She asked Roxanne to temporarily buy her a laptop and began to collect all sorts of information about the Thornton family, especially Eleanor Thornton's branch. While she was collecting, someone sent a compressed file to her email. Opening it, she found it was full of evidence of the Thornton family's tax evasion and various illegal activities in recent years. It was probably from some cynical, righteous individual who had seen her post on a forum asking for inside information. Willow Hawthorne packaged all these things and sent them separately to the Internal Affairs Department and the Veridian Group. The Veridian Group was the Thornton family's main base, headquartered abroad. Not long after, news broke that Internal Affairs had sent people to investigate and severely punished them. Following that, people from the Veridian Group headquarters came and overhauled the company from top to bottom, almost equivalent to dismantling and reorganizing it. Eleanor Thornton, who originally held real power, was sidelined. Eleanor Thornton had been recovering well and had hopes of returning to a normal life. But this series of blows caused her condition to worsen severely, to the point where she needed someone to attend to her every basic need. Conversely, Damen Thornton in the hospital was recovering well. His legs were already able to touch the ground. The first thing he did was to shakily walk over to Willow Hawthorne, as if seeking praise. "Look, I listened to you." There was no sign that his family was undergoing an unprecedented crisis. Willow Hawthorne frowned, staring at him, unable to resist asking, "Aren't you going to manage your family affairs? I heard Mrs. Thornton was furious and is looking for you." Damen Thornton was completely oblivious, ignoring her words. "When I get better, shall we go on a trip? Where do you want to go?" His eyes sparkled, as if he were genuinely just looking forward to an outing with Willow Hawthorne. Willow Hawthorne's face remained cold. "Take care of yourself. I'm being discharged." At this time, there was still half a month until the trial. Roxanne, carrying large and small bags, followed Willow Hawthorne home. The news was reporting the recent dramatic changes in the Thornton family, saying that the Veridian Group headquarters was furious and had disowned this branch. Now, the Thornton family had truly become a joke. And unfortunately, one of the mainstays was paralyzed, while the other had absolutely no inclination to manage the company. The Thornton family collapsed. Eleanor Thornton watched helplessly as they fell from the summit. In a fit of anger, she experienced a final burst of energy, cursed wildly, beating her chest and stamping her feet, and passed away that night. Although the Thornton family had collapsed, those who had connections still showed their respect by attending the funeral. Willow Hawthorne was among them, but while others mourned and sighed, for her, it was a grand celebration. Damen Thornton was originally receiving guests. Seeing Willow Hawthorne, his eyes lit up. He handed over the proceedings to other relatives and quickly walked towards her. His legs were still not agile, and he stumbled, yet he was eager. "Willow, you're here." Willow Hawthorne nodded in response. A voice sounded from behind. "Chief Thornton?" Serena Sterling appeared at the venue, arm in arm with Victor Smith. Chapter 24. Upon seeing Willow Hawthorne, Serena Sterling's expression changed slightly. "Willow, you're here too." She eagerly wanted to say something, but there were still formalities to attend to over there. She hurriedly said, "Wait for me, I have something to tell you." With that, she quickly walked towards the registration table. A tall figure followed her. Willow Hawthorne froze for a moment. Was that Leo Sterling just now? She looked in their direction. Although he looked somewhat unfamiliar in formal attire, she still recognized him. What was he doing here? Damen Thornton, seeing Willow Hawthorne staring unblinkingly in Serena Sterling's direction, thought she was still bothered and quickly said, "Serena and I are just friends now." After that fight, he had sorted everything out. Willow Hawthorne didn't care much for this explanation and nodded casually. After completing the formalities, Serena Sterling immediately came to find Willow Hawthorne. Her first words were an apology. "I didn't know you had such a big misunderstanding back then." "I'm sorry." No matter the misunderstanding, it was all in the past. Willow Hawthorne waved her hand. "It's fine, it's not important." Everyone attending the funeral knew each other, and moreover, Serena Sterling's husband was a renowned foreign tycoon. Many people wanted to take the opportunity to curry favor. Serena Sterling was quickly led away to socialize after exchanging just a few words. Only the young man, who had been very silent since earlier, remained. "Leo Sterling, aren't you going to explain?" Noticing Leo Sterling's hesitation, Willow Hawthorne broke the silence. Only then did Leo Sterling look up, somewhat embarrassed. I was just worried about you." "Don't worry, I've left the Twilight Bar in reliable hands." "You didn't come back for so long, and Roxy was being vague. I really couldn't think of any other legitimate reason, so I took this opportunity to come with my cousin." So he was Serena Sterling's cousin. His intentions were good. Willow Hawthorne couldn't blame him. She nodded to show she understood. Seeing Willow Hawthorne didn't look displeased, Leo Sterling gained some confidence and asked further, "Then, shall we have dinner together later?" "Let's invite Roxy." Willow Hawthorne readily agreed. "All right." They hadn't chatted for long before Damen Thornton seized another opportunity to approach. He happened to hear Leo Sterling telling Willow Hawthorne amusing anecdotes about the Twilight Bar, and his face darkened. "Are you two very close?" he interjected coldly. Willow Hawthorne looked at him speechlessly. "It's none of your business." Leo Sterling more or less knew about their entanglement and was already dissatisfied with Damen Thornton. Now, seeing Damen speak like this, he stood his ground, protecting Willow. "I'm talking to Sis Willow, what's it to you?" Using Sis Willow as a direct address might sound a bit off in general English, but for a younger, adoring character like Leo, it could work to show his protective and familiar stance, contrasting with Damen. Or just Willow. Damen Thornton looked at Leo Sterling, recognizing him. "You're Serena's good-for-nothing cousin, aren't you? Skipped school to go gallivanting?" The two were at loggerheads. Leo Sterling bit his lip and retorted sarcastically, "That's still better than you leech. First, you clung to my cousin, now you're clinging to Sis Willow. Can't you walk without clinging to someone? My cousin said so many times she loves her husband, why can't you hear a single word? Now Sis Willow says it's none of your business, you can't hear that either." It was clear he harbored great resentment towards Damen Thornton as he rattled off a tirade. Damen Thornton was speechless. Willow Hawthorne also picked up on something else from his words. It sounded as if Damen Thornton's feelings for Serena Sterling were also unrequited. How did this person manage to fail at everything? Thinking about Damen Thornton's actions, she could understand. After all, someone who never considered others would never receive genuine affection. After the memorial service, Willow Hawthorne had dinner with Leo Sterling and Roxanne. As it happened, Damen Thornton just naturally sat at the next table. Roxanne frowned. What on earth does he want? Willow Hawthorne kept her eyes straight ahead. Don't mind him. Anyway, after the trial, I won't be coming back here. There was nothing worth remembering here. Chapter 25, of the original 3 defendants, only Damen Thornton remained. The lawyer also breathed a slight sigh of relief. On the day of the trial, everyone waited for the defendant to arrive, but even after 10 minutes, there was no sign of him. Willow Hawthorne frowned, not knowing what Damen Thornton was up to. Before long, the opposing lawyer requested a postponement, saying the defendant had suffered a sudden accident and was hospitalized, unable to appear in court for a short time. It was forcibly postponed for another month. Willow Hawthorne felt a surge of anger. Damen Thornton was clearly doing this on purpose. She rushed to the hospital furiously. After inquiring, she was told Damen Thornton was still in emergency care. Because of a sudden complication with his legs, if not treated promptly, it could affect his brain. Half an hour later, Damen Thornton was wheeled out. Willow Hawthorne's gaze swept over him and stopped. His legs were empty below the knees. The doctor also came out, took off his mask, his face full of regret. He could have recovered well, but he accidentally fell down the stairs. There's no saving them now. Accidentally. Willow Hawthorne, her face cold, crossed her arms and waited for him to wake up. When Damen Thornton opened his eyes and saw Willow Hawthorne by his side, he thought he was dreaming. Willow, confirming she was really there, he sat up abruptly, but he lost his balance and fell back heavily. Despite his disheveled state, his face was filled with surprise. "I knew you'd come to see me. You still care about me." Willow Hawthorne only found him pitiful and wretched. "I don't care about you. I'm disgusted by you. To think of such a way to postpone the trial, I really admire your spirit of sacrifice." The light in Damen Thornton's eyes dimmed. He gave a bitter laugh. "A pair of legs in exchange for you staying an extra month. It's well worth it." Willow Hawthorne stared at him intently, then shook her head after a long moment and said, "You're mad." He looked deeply at Willow Hawthorne. "I'm not mad. I just know what I want now. Incurable." Willow Hawthorne, unable to communicate with him, threw out a sentence. "Don't play any more tricks to postpone. I insist on going to court to give us a formal end, so that if we meet by chance in the future, I can still greet you." She left without looking back. Damen Thornton stared in the direction she left, unable to regain his senses for a long time. As soon as Willow Hawthorne came out of the hospital, Roxanne and Leo Sterling rushed up, looking her up and down, afraid she had been bullied. She smiled faintly. "Now that he has no legs, how can he bully me?" "What?" Roxanne sensed the fleeting sadness in her eyes but ultimately said nothing, just patted her back. With an extra month suddenly available, Willow Hawthorne was still pondering how to spend it when Roxanne came over with a thick strategy guidebook. Under the guise of playing to the fullest, having finally come to the big city, she wanted to see the world thoroughly. Willow Hawthorne acted as a tour guide, with Leo Sterling as the porter, wholeheartedly serving Miss Roxanne. The late spring temperature was just right, sunny and warm. In such fine weather, Willow Hawthorne gradually forgot those dark and gloomy moods. But while she was inclined to forget, someone insisted on making her remember. The park on a weekday wasn't very crowded. Just as Willow, Roxanne, and Leo had found a suitable spot to set up their tent, they saw two people in the distance, one standing, one sitting. Standing was Damen Thornton's secretary. Sitting was Damen Thornton, in a wheelchair. She didn't want this peaceful space disturbed. She whispered to Roxanne, "I'll go over there for a moment." She walked towards Damen Thornton. Seeing her walk towards him voluntarily, Damen Thornton smiled. But when she got closer and he saw her somber face, his smile faltered. Chapter 26, Damen Thornton, have you completely failed to listen to a single word I've said up to now? Willow Hawthorne didn't restrain her tone, blaming him for disturbing her good mood. The man who used to be indifferent to her now looked flustered, explaining awkwardly, "Sorry, I just wanted to say a few words to you, but your phone wouldn't go through, and I couldn't contact you." Willow Hawthorne replied expressionlessly, "The fact that it wouldn't go through means I don't want to answer your calls. I have nothing to say to you. Don't bother me and my friends anymore." She delivered her ultimatum. Damen Thornton nervously tried to grab the hem of her clothes but missed. He leaned forward, his center of gravity shifted, and he fell directly to the ground. The secretary hurriedly helped him back into the wheelchair. His clothes were stained with mud and dust from the ground, but he only cared about trying to make Willow Hawthorne stay. "I really have something to say to you. I promise this is the last time I'll bother you." Other passersby in the park looked over, their eyes implicitly reproachful, blaming Willow Hawthorne for being too heartless. Willow Hawthorne let out a sigh of exasperation and turned to look at him. "What do you want to say?" Damen Thornton's face lit up, and he immediately said, "I won't ask you to do anything anymore. I just hope you can allow me to care about you occasionally." She carefully observed the man before her. In just a short month, he was like a different person. "Damen Thornton, I was the one who sent the whistleblower letter." She stated this calmly. The dramatic changes in the Thornton family had begun with a whistleblower letter. Damen Thornton's figure stiffened. After a moment, a bitter expression appeared. "I guessed as much." He had personally sent her that information. His intention was to test whether she still had any feelings for the Thornton family, for him. It seemed, as she said, there really were none. Willow Hawthorne didn't delve into the meaning of his words, instead asking, "You guessed, and you can still say what you just said. We were never on the same path. Don't keep pestering me. Our fate together ended long ago." Damen Thornton's throat moved, his expression pained. "When did it end? You did love me, right?" She didn't know why he was so fixated on this answer, but Willow Hawthorne could now face it calmly. "Yes, I liked you. But on our first wedding anniversary, when you were with Serena Sterling watching the aurora, I knew it was impossible between us. One must know when to cut losses in time, to stop at the right point. I understand this principle very well. I hope you understand it too." Saying these words, her tone actually became much more magnanimous and relaxed. "I've moved on. You should also make a formal farewell and start a new life." Damen Thornton gave a hoarse laugh and shook his head. He couldn't move on. Willow Hawthorne looked at him with pity and turned to leave. This time, Damen Thornton didn't pursue her relentlessly. He stared blankly for a long time before signaling the caregiver to push him back. As he turned the corner, he happened to see Willow Hawthorne laughing heartily at something Leo Sterling said, as if she were even brighter than the sunlight on her face. Such a smile she had shown him before, when he had accidentally smeared shaving foam on his face, and the more he tried to wipe it, the more it spread. She couldn't help but laugh, then helped him clean it up. But that was too long ago, so long ago that he thought it was a previous lifetime. Perhaps it really was time to let go. His entanglement would only make Willow Hawthorne more annoyed. "Let's go, back to the company to clean up this mess." Someone had to deal with the aftermath. He had been avoiding it for so long. Now it was time to take responsibility. The Thornton family went bankrupt and was liquidated. All that was left for Damen Thornton was a small enterprise and that large penthouse. It was said that he had exchanged company shares for the penthouse, claiming it was very important to him. Willow Hawthorne let these news items go in one ear and out the other, her mind solely focused on music production and the upcoming trial. Chapter 27, on the day of the trial, amidst everyone's anticipation, Damen Thornton finally entered, pushing his wheelchair. When the presiding judge announced the start of the trial, he suddenly raised his hand. "I plead guilty." The courtroom erupted in an uproar. Amidst the noisy discussions, he looked at Willow Hawthorne in the plaintiff's seat, his eyes full of relief. She was probably eager to leave. He would save her some time. Willow Hawthorne's brow furrowed slightly. After confirming he wasn't playing tricks, she quickly relaxed. Little did she know, Damen Thornton then immediately began to state his own faults, deliberately taking the main blame upon himself. Willow Hawthorne's face tightened as she listened. What was he doing? He hadn't done those things he was talking about, but Marcus Davies had. So, in the end, he was convicted and sentenced to 2 years. The sentence was pronounced on the spot. 2 years of imprisonment. But Willow Hawthorne had only expected at most 6 months of labor reform, especially since Damen Thornton was now considered disabled. As he was leaving the courtroom, he passed by her, his expression relaxed. "Don't blame yourself. I need 2 years to forcibly get used to not looking for you." Willow Hawthorne was speechless. The media reported and hyped the matter extensively, and the affair came to a dramatic close. Willow Hawthorne stood at the station, looking at the large words Bridgewater. A complex mix of emotions welling up in her heart, finally dissolving into a light sigh. She returned to the small city with Roxanne, while Leo Sterling continued his studies abroad. While the Twilight Bar was booming, an old professor, Professor Alastair Finch, approached Willow Hawthorne, insisting on taking her for further studies and releasing her records. With Roxanne's encouragement, Willow Hawthorne bravely tried and was exceptionally admitted to the top academy. When Professor Finch found her recommendation letter from years ago, he exclaimed that it was indeed fate. 2 years passed in a flash. Willow Hawthorne graduated early with excellent results and smoothly entered the National Theatre, becoming a deputy principal musician at a young age. Leo Sterling also completed his studies, becoming a cellist. Occasionally, the two would get into heated discussions about music, and their relationship grew closer amidst the arguments. It was time for Martha Hawthorne's death anniversary again. Willow Hawthorne booked her ticket back to the country early. She hadn't been back for 2 years. Firstly, time was tight and her coursework was heavy. Secondly, her life was currently centered abroad. Now that she had finally graduated, her schedule was more flexible. This trip back was also to take out her adoptive parents' ashes. She planned to settle abroad permanently. After settling in her seat, she took out a yellowed notebook. This was her only memory with her adoptive parents, recording ordinary, trivial things like bringing groceries and buying medicine. Now they had all become her immensely precious memories. "Miss, excuse me, is this seat taken?" Willow Hawthorne looked up and saw Leo Sterling, her lips curving. "You're going back too?" Leo Sterling sat down familiarly. "Yes, I was just worried someone might be lonely on the way." His eyes flickered, concealing his true purpose. The plane landed. Willow Hawthorne handled all her affairs according to plan and then made a special trip to pick up Roxanne. Roxanne had had enough of running the Twilight Bar and had just closed it, so she naturally sought refuge with her good friend. After everything was taken care of, Willow Hawthorne's last remaining ties in the country were all taken away with her. The three of them planned to travel along the coast, island hopping, on their way back to their place of residence. Before departing, Willow Hawthorne received a phone call, but the other side didn't speak, hanging up after about 10 seconds. The caller ID showed Bridgewater. Leo Sterling immediately sounded the alarm. This was exactly what he had feared, which was why he had specifically returned. Willow Hawthorne stood blankly for a moment, then went to a place selling postcards and solemnly wrote down 8 words. "Mountains high, waters far, may each be well." There was no signature or recipient, only an address. She didn't need a reply. The plane's tail drew a long white line across the sky. Her life was still vast and wide. By the riverside in Bridgewater, Damen Thornton sat before the floor-to-ceiling window, repeatedly caressing the postcard, then carefully placing it in a photo frame, framing his few precious memories and also framing the rest of his life. The end.